Hi and welcome to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. We're going to be taking a flight in the Beechcraft Bonanza G36 from RJTK to RJTT. We're going to show an ILS landing, and I might try and discuss a few other things in this flight as well. So let's get started. I'm going to click ready to fly. This is one of my more favourite planes of the default planes that came with the game, mostly because it has a retractable gear and it's a little bit faster. But we're going to do a cold and dark start. You can follow along. I'm just going to get rid of the yoke, and we're going to turn on the two batteries. I'm going to turn on the pitot heat. I'm going to put on the parking brake, and I'm going to put on our beacon light if I can. There we go. I'm going to push up the mixture. I'm going to push up the propeller. I'm going to push up the throttle to just about 20%. You can open the cowl flaps just down here while you're down here and turn the key, and the plane will start every time. You can start it however you like, but please can I just make sure you're aware, by default the plane comes with it in the left tank for fuel, and if it's in the off position it's not going to work. Okay, so just make sure that you have it on one of the tanks, either left or right, for the fuel. If it is in the off position you will not be able to start this plane. So yeah, if you're having trouble, hopefully that might help you. I'm just going to turn on the alternator 1 and 2, turn on the avionics, and we can put it on the taxi light for the moment, and that should be okay. I'm just going to bring our throttle all the way back to make sure it's all the way back, and I'm going to take off our parking brake. We'll just have a little look outside before I do. This guy wants to push me back, I think. Very well. I'll take off the parking brake anyway. We'll push that around. We'll try and show you something else while we're waiting. Over here on the right map, you can actually change the zoom of this. You see the word range? If you push the mouse hovering above that and then just use the mouse wheel while hovering above it, you can zoom in, you can zoom out. If you really want to move the map around, you can left click in the center. It gives you a mouse cursor, and then you can push up above the range button. You can push down. You've got to hold down the mouse button though to move that mouse cursor around. But you can actually sort of pan the map. You can also do the same with the tiny little map down here, and then you can use this one here for the range and the movement. To be honest, I don't think it's very much used for gaming. You might want to change the zoom. I think that's okay, that's useful, but as far as panning around, it's a bit awkward. You'd be a lot better off just hitting V on the keyboard and zooming in and out like this. In real life it's probably really useful, but we've got this in the game and I think you're going to find this a lot more useful. So yeah, I can't see people using that too often, but maybe they want to simulate that reality. What else can we put on? Just down here we've got the PFD. We can left click that once. We can click on wind and we can put it on option 3. I just click 3 all the time. It'll show you the wind and the direction up here. That's quite useful. You can also put on the bearing information, and if it says no data at the moment because it's not got a signal, then that's cool. But you can also put on bearing 2 information. I'll leave bearing 2 off, and you will just put on the nav 1 which has no data, and I'll show you a little bit later when it has filled in data when we put in the nav information up there. That's your transponder, and then this here is just your timer. It gives you your takeoff speeds, like around 70, and then you've got your cruise speeds around about 100, and you can also put a timer. Again, it's good that it's got a timer, but in the game, if you go up to the top of the menu and you go and click on navlog, you've got a timer here, which is so much easier to use, and you can turn this off, you can reset it, you don't have to worry about mucking around with these controls. So yeah, it's useful, it's great that it's there, it's probably there in real life, but the game has this, so if you want to use that one instead, you may find that a lot easier. You can also give your nearest airport information, which is cool. You can bring up your flight plan, so the top left one is for direct to. You can left click that and you can do a direct to some particular airport if you want. You can click on flight plan, you can bring up your flight plan information. And you can also click on procedures if you want to, once you've entered in your plan to a particular airport, you can then select the approach to that airport, and you can do that in here. You're basically clicking that button, and to interact with it, you're going to use this down here in the bottom, and you can see I can scroll through the options, and then I can push enter on one of the options if I wanted. But for the moment, I don't don't need to do that. So I'm just going to click on procedures again to get rid of it, and we're all good. Also up here, you've got one which changes your baro. So this one here, one of them changes your barometer. So you can move your barometer around if you're trying to land at a weird destination. You can push B on the keyboard to recenter it, so if you want to go back to normal. And you've also got here the center, the CDI. So your CDI, which is mentioned down here, will be at the moment on VOR 1. If you wanted to turn that around for navigation or landing, you can use this little button up here, and that turns that around. So you can see how it's changing the course. So if you wanted to match it up with the runway direction that you're going to go to, you could do that and use that as a handy guide. It's also really useful for navigation. So yeah, that's where that feature is on this G1000. Awesome. I really want to get the plane into the air now, so let's try and get up into the air. I think this guy should have definitely helped push me back. Just have a look outside and we're all good to go. Okay, let's give ourselves a little bit of power. I'm pretty certain my parking brake is off. I only have my feet on the feet brakes. This plane does not need flaps to take off whatsoever, but I'll give it a little bit of flaps. I'm just hitting F7 on the keyboard to give it the first level of flaps. If you go full flaps in this plane and you're full throttle, you'll find it will really slow the plane down. So you would not be taking off with full flaps of this plane ever. We'll come up to the runway and then I'll just have a quick last look at whatever else we got going on. We are playing with no other players at the moment, so it's all clear, and obviously I've got a clear sunny day. So try and get the best recording I can. I'm also using a new microphone, or a different microphone I could say, at the moment. So hopefully this video is a little bit clearer. I'll find out when I finish. Just going to jump back into my cockpit and have a little look at what's going on. We've got a taxi light on here. We can turn it off once we get in the air. The only thing I want to change is the CDI here. I want to just get that ready so I can put on the autopilot. So that's now changed to GPS mode. Once we get into the air, I'm going to try and get ourselves up to 1500, and then I am going to click on the autopilot mode, I'm going to click on the altitude hold mode, and then I'm going to click on the nav mode. Those three things. You could use FLC if you want, but I'm just going to manually take it up. Let's get going. FLC stands for flight level change, and you could use that if you're climbing. It will help hold your current speed, and it will keep you at that current speed as you're climbing. It's more of, well, it is more of an autopilot. Just going to give it full throttle. This plane sounds pretty good for a default plane. If someone wants to release a full study level version of this plane, that would be cool. But just for gaming purposes, this plane is pretty good. Just pulling back gently on the stick and push G on the keyboard to bring our gear in. Oh, our gear is already in, sure. I'm way too quick. So we're just climbing up to around about 100 here. We're just holding about 100, and we're just trying to get up to about 1500. I'll slightly turn it to the right so we can meet the line. I would talk about the nav change. You can change your comm radios with this one down here. It works very similarly to the nav button, but just in reverse, because it's on this side and it deals with the comm radios up here, and then your navigation is up here. Let it go down just a slight touch so it's closer to 100. We're still climbing and we're coming towards the line, so that's all good. We have fuel. Turn it to the left now. And then continue climbing. Just past the 1000. 100. Nothing else is out, is it? I don't think so. I'm going to put our flaps up, that would help a lot. Then take off taxi light. The nav light can come on. Very, very cool that you've got these instruments at least here. There's not all like digital. I think that's cool. And really cool if you want to just like change positions and watch it from the other seat, from the co-pilot seat. You can fly from here. Okay, so now we're over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on, well, we'll just have a look at our altitude, but we're about 1500. We're going to click on Engage Autopilot. I'm going to click on Altitude Hold, and I'm going to click on Nav Mode. So the nav mode is going to follow the GPS, which is got this big pink line up here, and when it gets to there, it'll turn left by itself to follow the white line and the white line. Now we're going to be coming over for landing here at Haneda International Airport, runway 22. So somewhere between Nexus and Nitro, I'm going to activate the approach mode. But the first thing we need to do is get ourselves with the information up here in the nav. So I'm just going to change our view again because we can. We're back into the pilot seat and we're ready to go. So I'm going to change this information up here. To do so, I'm going to use the nav up here button. I'm just going to scroll over the top button and change it to 108. And then the tiny little button, I'm just going to hover above that one and scroll it around until it's 110. Now the one that's changing is always the one that is in the white box. So the white box is the one which is changing. The active one is the one on the right. The one on the right of this little tiny light blue symbol. Now to change it then from here over to the right so that it's the active one, we click this button here. So that little image obviously matches that little image. It just means swap standby and active. I click that and swaps over and then it's active. You can also see down here it says the information and how far away that target point is, 11.9. It will only do that because I had in PFD, you need to make sure the BRG1 is matching nav1. If it was like on ADF or something, you can see it says no data. So if you're wondering what's going on, make sure it says nav1. It's got to be the one matching what the name is up here, nav1, nav1, and then nav1. So that's why we can see that. You could keep an eye on a different bearing if you wanted over here with this information, but at the moment we just need that because we're going to be landing fairly quickly. We'll just go back. All our nearest airports here, it also seems to be like the nearest airport, and there's no alerts. So that's all pretty simple. We don't need to change our comm radios, but if you wanted, you could be using this to scroll the big number and then the other one to scroll the small number. And then to swap it over, you would just be pushing that button to swap standby and active. You can see it swapped over, and then I click it again and I'll swap it back. So that's pretty easy. I've got the computer at the moment looking after the ATC, so he's probably going to change these numbers anyway. If you've lost your plane on the map, you can just click in the middle button here, just once, just click it once and it'll find the plane again, and you can use the mouse wheel to scroll in out as needed. So have a little look at some of the scenery. Very cool little plane, this one. Outside we should be able to see Mount Fuji, just over there we can see. I have seen Mount Fuji in real life. I've now also seen it in the game. Don't have very much cloud, just off in the distance, but where we are we seem to be fairly okay. So our flaps are up. I'm just cruising along here. We're in the green zone. And they've got small winds. I haven't seen many strong winds in this game yet. I don't know if they exist, but They all seem to be very slow. So we can turn on our landing lights just to get ready well in advance. Then we don't have to think about that anymore. You can swap the engines, so you could change where the fuel's coming from. Select the right fuel tank down here, so just keep swapping it over. And you can see how it's going by looking up here at our fuel gauge. So you can see the right's got a little bit more fuel at the moment than the left. So we'll let it take from the right for the rest of the flight. We need to change nothing at the moment, 108.10, so that's all good. We can see our distance, 4.1, to the next destination, Nylon. So if we click on V, we can see Nylon is 4.1, but our distance to down here, the airport, is that distance there. So that should be going up at the moment because we're heading away from it, 17 nautical miles, so that makes sense. Now all we have to do, and I want to keep it fairly easy and simple to activate the ILS in this aircraft, is click two buttons. We have to click this button here, and we have to change this to NAV1, which will change this here to LOC1. It'll say LOC1 if it's working. And then it will be using this information up here, the 108.10, to get the glide slope information to come down to the runway. The other button we've got to click is approach. So you can see over here it says APR, approach mode on. We need to click that. And at the moment, that's the last two things we need to do. Then once we are at the very last moment, right above the runway, we have to click one button to turn off the autopilot, and then we just hand fly it in. So you'll just be keeping your feet on the rudder pedals, making sure that you flare just slightly. Let the plane run along the ground. Don't hit the wheel brake straight away. That would be a good thing to keep in mind. Certainly don't put the parking brake on. If you do need brakes and you're not got rudder pedals, you can put on the numlock pad on your keyboard and then push the dot, comma, delete button or decimal button on your numlock pad, and that will also give you brakes. But that won't give you left or right brakes, it will just hit all brakes. But if there's an emergency and you're trying to brake, you can use that. Just jump back to our external view. We can have a little look at the ground scenery for a little bit. Looks very cool. You can see the roads and certainly be able to navigate from features on the ground if you're familiar. And even if you're not familiar, if you had a guide as to what you're looking for, you could certainly find those landmarks. That's certainly probably the biggest groundbreaking thing about this scenery, is just how much of the landmarks you could use to find a visual reference as to your location. But also the clouds and the sky and the haze, all of that is absolutely amazing in this game. Really adds to the whole skyscape. The sunsets, the sunrises are incredible. I think this is the first game that I have ever seen with a flight simulator that has a rainbow. I don't remember seeing a rainbow in a flight simulator. So we can see the river through here. So we only need to do two things, as I said. We're only going to click the approach button, and we are going to change down here on the CDI and change that to NAV1. We've got NAV1 up here, and we know also our distance down here. Plane is cruising along. You've got a heading mode over here, so this little light blue button you can move around by just scrolling above it. And say you wanted to take the plane out of autopilot and you just wanted to follow the heading button, well, I could just put it on our current heading at the moment for a few seconds. We'll say it wants to head that direction. so it's there. Then I can just change over here and I can click on the heading button. So I'll turn heading on, and now it's no longer in nav mode. You'll notice nav mode is off and heading mode is on. And if you look up here, you can see it says heading. If I want to change the direction of the plane, I can actually just turn this knob. Can you see the plane's turning to the right now? If I want to turn to the left, I could just scroll it around and the plane will go to the left. Pretty cool. That's an easy way of turning the plane around. It's keeping the altitude for us because we already said that, but we can change the heading. I'm just going to put it back onto nav mode by clicking that button, and now it will go back to following the GPS by itself. And we can turn this heading wherever we want for the moment. We can use it just as a reference to keep an eye on a particular heading if we want. But that's what the heading button here is. So we now know what the nav is, we know what the heading is. We know about the baro and the course select. We also know about tuning our radios. We know about the range button. And down here obviously is our controls for all of these functions. Certainly not the intention of this video. I'm just trying to show you an ILS landing only. That is the prime function of this video. So if you can understand how to do an ILS landing, then that is fantastic. Before we took off, we changed the CDI to GPS mode. Then once we were up in the sky, we did three things. We put on the autopilot, we put on the altitude hold mode, and we put it on nav hold mode. Then that gave us time to go up here and change our frequency. So we went and changed the number to 108, and then we went and changed the small number to 10, and then we had to swap it over. I can swap it over now because they're both the same. Left click it and it swaps over, and we've got 108.10. If you want to move to MAV2, you can do that. You just left click here. It has no words, but if you just push on the button forwards, inwards, just left click there, you'll notice it swaps over to 113.90. I want to swap back, left click once, and it swaps over. Because I swapped it over, I think you'll find the nav mode is turned off. So it hasn't turned off in this case, but anyway, if it couldn't find, in fact it wouldn't turn off because we haven't activated it yet. But we need to keep an eye on what our plane is doing. Anytime you do make a change, it's a good thing just to keep an eye on what has changed. And you can always check what this has changed by looking up here. So you can see it's still in GPS mode, autopilot's on, altitude hold mode on, okay? So if you're ever getting confused and you just don't know what's going on with the plane, have a look up here. It's got very, very useful information, especially in that green. So we're going to keep it at 1500. So it's consistent with the other flights. You'll notice our fuel now is a bit more evened up, which is good. We've got autopilot, flight director, the heading mode, altitude mode, nav mode, vertical navigation, approach mode, the back course button. That would be if we were doing a missed approach and we were flown over the course mode and we still wanted to keep an eye on the marker. Would keep us in line with that, similar to going inwards, but it will keep us in line with it going away from the marker. Then we've got vertical sync, vertical speed mode, nose up and down, and flight level change. Not sure where we are. We can left click once here and it'll bring us back to our plane. So we're in the point where we're going to hit all these buttons now. So I'm going to click on approach. Approach mode is on. I'm going to go down to here. I'm going to change it to LOC1. It'll turn just a little bit and then get itself happy. Now the big thing is we're going to get our speed down. Got a little way to go, and this plane can pull up super quick, especially with the flaps available on this plane. We'll bring our speed back a little bit and we'll see if we can get ourselves under 120. Once we're under 120, I'll bring out the gear. Sort of entering that white zone there. So we're going to click on G on the keyboard to bring the gear out. I'm going to push F7 to do one level of flaps. We can see our gear coming out and our flaps coming out. What I do like this plane is you've got 3 greens for the gears. So you've actually got 3 greens. You can say, yep, 3 greens down. We've got our landing lights on. We're all set and ready down there. Our tail flaps have been open the whole time. That's fine. We really just want to show you the ILS landing in this plane. I'll get ready with my rudder pedals while I can. We're holding a constant 1500 at the moment, and we'll see if we can see the runway from a more external view. Should be down there. It usually goes over the first 2 rivers, and then that's when it will start declining, just past that second one. So we'll keep it there around that view, but it should be out that way. LOC1, as you can see over here. Speed is not too bad. I wouldn't put it out on full flaps with this plane at this point. It'll really lose speed and it'll go down to like 60, 70 or something. It's good if you need to lose speed, so you can put it on pretty much at the last moment, because we're not having any trouble losing speed. The gears certainly help to slow the plane a little bit. So once they're down, I don't really need full flaps, but I've just got a little bit of flaps out at the moment. They would not be putting them out quite this early, likely. We're just going to keep an eye on up here. Now just above the G, it'll have like O for outer marker, and then it might have M for the middle marker. The G diamond below it, the little diamond to green diamond below the G for the glide slope, will come down towards us at 1500. When it finds us at 1500, it will then drag us down at the 3 degrees down to the runway. We can see our outside temperature, 24 degrees. We're not squawking anything at the moment unless my AI did it. But yeah, a lot of fun. This is a good plane because it's not crazy slow, so you can still get around fairly quickly. You can still use a gear, you can still use the flaps. It has decent range. So we can see that first river here. We'll have a little look outside. You can see that through here. We can see the runway up ahead there. If it's looking like you're way off to the sides, there's something wrong. We can see Mount Fuji off to our right here. That could also be a good landmark to be looking for if you're coming in for this landing in Tokyo, Japan. Jump back into our little plane. We can see our flaps are down, so we've even got lights for that, which is very useful. And 3 gears down, so we know what's happening without having to look outside. If you were going to a high altitude, you would be bringing that mixture back, but for the sake of this mission where we're just learning how to do ILS, we don't really need to worry about that at all. We haven't gone up to a super high altitude. We're in the red zone there at the moment. I'm not in full throttle either, so I might just ease it back a little bit. You can notice it's green now. It's a little bit happier. The main thing is I didn't want to be going too fast at the moment. So now you can see just up here it's gone O, so for the outer marker. So we're just going over the outer marker, and just to give you a visual reference, you know, the outer marker is around about here, this bridge. So if that helps you, if you're going to give this a go yourself, you know, the outer marker is around this bridge. But the glide slope won't ask us to come down just yet. A little bit further, we can see that. So we can see the green diamond now is coming down. And it will collect us at 1500 and then drag us down to the runway. We should be able to see us in line with the runway fairly now. So we can see the runway down there. We can see we're pretty much in line with it. There we go. Now we're almost at the point where it's going to drag us down. Now I'm not touching the joystick at all, but it's going to push us nose down. Our speed will go up slightly once it goes to the nose down, and we can bring the throttle back just a little bit. So just bringing that throttle back. 1400. Now that's the ILS bringing us in for landing with this plane. So definitely don't get too stressed. Doing ILS landing is not hard. This game is for everyone. Please do have fun with it and give all the planes a go. If you want to practice, here's an example. You've got Mount Fuji to look at as you're coming into land. That's pretty cool. They call Mount Fuji a shy mountain because obviously it's quite in amongst the clouds. If you go to Japan, they sometimes call it a shy mountain. You can go to Tokyo and not be able to see Mount Fuji because of the clouds. So you can see we're very much lined up here with the runway. I'm not having to do very much work at all. Just for the last few moments when I want to bleed off this speed, I'll put the full flaps and then cut our throttle. I just also want to change my camera to landing. One final step I need to do, and you would need to do as well, is click here to turn the autopilot off, okay? So we need to click that one button. We'll have a little look at our external view. And you can see we're very lined up now. And that's what you're looking for with an ILS landing. It'll keep adjusting us. A little bit of wind there, but and turbulence. But we're quite lined up. That is certainly what you're looking for. It may give us another outer marker or in a middle marker. We will see. So I'm just getting ready with this button down here, the autopilot button. I'm going to left click that once. You can see the middle marker, the yellow button now. It did give us that. So I'll put full flaps out. I'll bring our gear throttle back. I'll disengage the autopilot, and then I'm just going to flare. And we're down. And you can practice that. We can bring our flaps up. Push D on the keyboard. We're just going to look up a little bit so I can see where we're going. Don't hit the brakes immediately. Just let the plane run out, especially when we've got a big runway like this. You can see our speed. It's giving me a little location we can go to today, so I might follow where it tells me to go. We can use our rudder pedals. I can change my lights to taxi if I can work that out. Turn on taxi lights there and turn off landing lights. We'll just go left. Going about 27 at the moment. So now just give it a little bit of throttle because we want it to keep going. We don't want to come to a complete stop. And we'll follow this guidance. .38 nautical miles. Very well. So yeah, pretty cool plane. If you want to fly something different to the Cessna, please do give it a go. Don't think that your skills are limited to the Cessna. You'll be able to do an ILS landing with this one. The handle is really, really cool. No doubt there will probably be a study level version of this plane at some point, but as it is, as a default aircraft, this is still a lot of fun. So we're going to be going over here somewhere on the right. Let's see if they got any people waiting for us. Because is this going to give me a parking bay? We've got people. That's interesting. Can zoom out a little bit. Okay, so he's going to guide me. I reckon we just follow this yellow line, and that's going to be relatively good. He wants me to go left, really? There we go, he's happy. Scrolling. There's a line to come to the stop. He's got his arms. They're coming over, and they're crossed. So we stop right there. I'll put my parking brake on. I'm going to do a really quick shutdown. We're going to hit the mixture control. In fact, you know what? We can teach you this. You can see down here the fuel tank selector. If I go and switch that to off, you'll notice the engines go off. So I don't even have to touch the mixture. Now I'll turn the mixture and the propeller off, and we'll turn off these 4 switches along with the avionics, and we are shut down super duper quick. A lot of fun, this little plane. This guy's going to hold his hands up in the air forever. And that is an ILS landing in Bonanza. I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to subscribe. Really appreciate all the subscriptions. Feel free to like the video and comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.